Current political crisis in Bosnia and Herzegovina very much stems from the Dayton Peace Accords that were concluded in 1995 after the 4-year-long war there. The accords in particular included agreement on the intention to develop institutional structure that would make Bosnia and Herzegovina a functional state. However, this never happened. This was never achieved. Tremendous efforts by international actors to get 3 ethnic groups of Bosniak Serbs and Croats to work together proved to be rather ineffective. Last year, Bosnia's High Representative Valentin Inzko, while exercising his mandate, imposed amendments to the country's criminal code that banned the denial of the Srebrenica genocide and the glorification of the war criminals. Milorad Dodik, who had Serbian majority entity of Republika Srpska, opposed such decision and since then continues to challenge Dayton Accords, the very nature of Bosnia and Herzegovina and its institutions. As part of his rhetorics about entities' potential secession from Bosnia and Herzegovina, he is blocking the work and decisions of national institutions, threatens to create entities' own military forces and judiciary, refuses authority of the High Representative, and together with the local manually operated institutions, establishes parallel agencies. The failed negotiations on the reform of the country's electoral law, in face of the upcoming October elections, make the situation even more hopeless. Lack of trust in the electoral process will inevitably raise the issue of legitimacy of those who end up being elected, which will spiral the political crisis again. Taking all of this into consideration, the situation seems to be deadlocked, and the country effectively paralyzed by the 27-year-old accords that were only meant to be a bandage for a bleeding wound. Obviously, an alternative to this is needed. However, breaching any agreement currently seems unrealistic too.
The fundamental cause of Bosnia-Herzegovina's present political crisis is a shared opposition to the fundamental existence and idea of a sovereign Bosnian-Herzegovinian state on the part of large segments of the Serb and Croat nationalist establishments in that country, respectively, as well as the benefaction that they enjoy from malign outside actors, among these primarily the governments of Serbia, Croatia, and Russia. Milorad Dodik's regime in the RS entity has engaged in a long-standing effort, a deliberate, systematic attempt at secession, aiming to pull out the entity of the Republika Srpska from the Bosnian-Herzegovinian state and append it in some shape, way, or form to a greater Serbia, or what is presently referred to by the government of Serbia as the idea of a Serbian world. On the other hand, the Croat nationalist establishment in Bosnia-Herzegovina, as represented by the HDZ party and their longtime leader Dragan Čović, is not in the same sense an explicit secessionist, but he certainly does aim to fragment the Bosnian-Herzegovinian state along explicitly ethnic lines to a still further sectarian degree than is presently the case, and make any kind of rational, cohesive governance in Bosnia-Herzegovina an improbable scenario. All of this, as stated, is largely supported explicitly by the governments of Croatia, Serbia, and Russia.
Bosnia and Herzegovina has been in a downward spiral for the past decade since the United States of America stopped with its hands-on engagement in the local and regional politics, and after the European Union failed to establish itself as a serious and relevant political actor in the Balkans. Weakening of the Western oversight of the Dayton Peace Accord in this period has allowed local political elites to ignore, circumvent, and/or violate country's constitution, laws, and bylaws. As a result of this process, Bosnia and Herzegovina today is on the verge of becoming a failed state with deadlocked governments and deeply divided, corrupt, and dysfunctional political, security, and judicial systems and public services. This situation has sparked an ongoing debate within local and international circles about who is to be held responsible for this situation. Is the Dayton Peace Accord already damaged beyond the repair, or if it can still be saved and fixed, and even whether the system is worth fixing, or if Bosnia and Herzegovina now needs a new political and constitutional framework, often dubbed Dayton II. This crisis was made possible by lethargic and clueless engagement of international actors, especially the European Union, the United States of America, and the Office of the High Representative, as the local parties seem to be completely deadlocked and unable or unwilling to resolve their problems. The fate of the country, unfortunately, lies once again in the hands of Western actors. This calls for new ideas as well as renewed, concrete, and relevant carrot-and-stick approach, which worked immediately after the war.
The unprovoked aggression of Russia against Ukraine challenged our feeling of security. However, we in Slovakia, we in Central Europe, are in a more comfortable situation than people inhabitants of Bosnia and Herzegovina and other Western Balkan countries, because their countries are not the EU members, are not NATO members. The European Union has been supporting Bosnia and Herzegovina in many ways. Financially, recently it has also strengthened its Althea mission in the country. However, the local political leaders should prove that they are committed to European values in such trying times, and should also realize that bringing any instability in the country is against its integration interest and against its European future.